Well, a very good morning and welcome to day 2 of the British Tourism and Travel Show 2023 and to the first of today's 3 keynote sessions. I'm Stuart Render, I'm a group tourism consultant, a transport and travel writer, the joint chair of the British Guild of Travel Writers and all of that, and it's really it's a great pleasure to be here this year to be able to introduce these sessions and welcome you today. Now, in a moment, I'll be introducing our first session, but first of all, we have a little something different happening this year. We've teamed up with the Guild of British... No, it's not. It's the British Guild of Tourist Guides. And in between each of our main sessions today, a blue badge guide will be popping up here and offering a short 15-minute presentation on a destination of interest. And the first of these, straight after this session, brings together Heather and Ian Newman, who will be explaining how a driver-guided tour can really bring a good itinerary to life. So if you want to find out more about that, stick around at the end. But that's later. Now, I'm tempted to think you surely know that AGTO, the Association of Group Travel Organisers, is the UK's largest independent professional membership organisation supporting and representing the interests of individuals who organise travel for groups. And as well as offering membership to GTOs, associate membership is available to destinations, visitor attractions and travel trade suppliers that provide services for group travel. And the hall, I have to say, is full of associate members and we're very pleased to see them here. There are 6 regional branches in AGTO and they provide networking opportunities as a quarterly magazine and a whole raft of other benefits. So to tell us more and to explain how GTOs and what they do with group travel is influencing climate change, and I think I can see the link and I think it might be coaches, please welcome the Chief Executive of AGTO, Wendy Hartley-Scarfe.
Thank you, Stuart, for that wonderful introduction. I don't need to do my sales pitch for AGTO now because Stuart's already done it. Okay, what I wanted to do today was to bring to the forefront climate change. It's a very, very hot topic, as we saw from the Euromonitor report yesterday as well. And unless you're going around blindfold, it's out there in the marketplace all the time, not just in travel, but in everything we do as human beings. So I'd like to take this moment, about the next 10 minutes or so, to talk about it from a global perspective and what will happen if we continue to operate in the current environment as we currently do today. It's not a very pretty sight, I'm afraid, but there are ways to, and there are plans in place, thankfully, by governments to and ourselves to actually limit the damage that we are causing to our planet. I'd then like to discuss with our panellists, Commercial Director John Johnson of Johnson Coaches and Beverly Williams-Smith, Head of Sales and Partnerships UK and Inbound of Q Green Hotels, to hear what their thoughts are, what their organisations are doing to tackle the climate change issue and the challenges they've faced along the way. And then let's look at how we can contribute in terms of our travel choices and our small way of actually combating climate change. Recent travel trends, that's John Johnson. Recent travel trends demonstrate that travellers are now looking at companies they use and the destinations they go to, trying to understand what their sustainability credentials are. Do they have any? Do they help or hinder the destinations they go to? And more we are seeing travellers making a conscious choice as to whether they will use a certain company or another company based on their own sustainability targets. And as mentioned yesterday in the Euromonitor update on travel trends, some customers are even willing to pay a premium to meet their sustainability agenda. Whilst the younger generation are extremely conscious of travelling responsibly, climate change and the environmental issues that travelling can contribute to, the older generation, there's a few in the audience like me, and the older generation, are now starting to get a little bit concerned about what we will leave to our children. A recent study of over 4,000 over 50s who regularly travel demonstrate that 46% wish to travel responsibly, with comments being made as use greener methods of transport where possible and leaving a carbon footprint as possible are a consideration. being mindful of the effect my travel plans have on the environment, and minimising carbon footprint and supporting local communities. So how does this type of thinking and activity affect the way we currently travel? And how will it affect our travel in the future? Especially as the travel and tourism sector, according to the UN, tourism sector currently contributes between 8 and 11% of the global CO2 emissions. That's a very scary figure for an industry that we're in. The global climate change is to reduce carbon emissions to maintain a global temperature of 1.5 degrees. And the UN have said climate change is a global emergency that goes beyond national borders. Hence why, I'm not sure if you know about all this, so I'll just dip into it very briefly. The Paris Summit in 2015, where 193 states in the EU signed up to targets for the 1.5 degree, based on 3 elements. And it will be reviewed. One of their elements there is that they will review this every 5 years, which they will do, to make sure that every country is coming in line with it. Some countries are better at it than others, and one interesting one is the finance element. So the more wealthy countries will help the poorer countries to actually achieve the target of the 1.5. It is one of the greatest challenges humankind has ever faced in our lifetime. It calls for nothing less than a complete transformation of how we produce, how we consume, and how we move around. So it's not just on travel, it's on every single thing that we do as human beings. To put this into perspective, in 2020, we are already at 1 degree. And we're seeing the effects of this warming via hurricanes, floods, forest fires, and droughts. Based on a book by Mark Linus, a respected author on climate change, he's reviewed hundreds of scientific papers to outline the likely effects of each degree of global warming in his book, if we continue business as usual. The book is Our Final Warning, 6 Degrees of Global Warming. Excuse me. Linus observes that based on the business as usual model, if we continue to do exactly what we're doing today in every aspect of our life, we're likely to hit 2 degrees in the next 10 years, which will stress human society, lead to widespread fires and floods and droughts, destroy coral reefs and rainforests, and increase the risk of hitting 3 degrees due to tipping points of an iceless Arctic in the summer and melting mountain glaciers. On this trajectory, we're likely to hit 3 degrees in the 2050s and 60s. This is within the lifetime of some people in this room. Probably not mine, but some people here. It's hotter than any experience of the human species, and it will destabilize civilization because of sea level rises, forcing hundreds of millions of people to relocate, and there will be an ice-free Arctic all year round. It will increase desert spaces, cause failed harvests, famines, loss of water supplies, and mass extinction. In 2075, we could hit 4 degrees, which will create the worst mass extinction in 10 million years. Very scary thought if we don't do anything. And it's actually happening. So the point is, unless we act now, we're sleepwalking into our own destruction. It's a major threat. It won't totally just transform or disrupt many of our lives, but it certainly will for our children and our grandchildren. And that is an extremely scary thought for me. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is an urgent need to act over the next 10 years if we hope to reduce CO2 emissions to net zero by 2050. At the Glasgow Climate Pact Summit, excuse me, in Glasgow in 2020, action from the tourism industry was recognised as a vital part of the fight against climate change, obviously because of the contribution that I mentioned early on, between 8 and 11% of CO2 emissions responsible from the industry. they put together the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action in Tourism. It was launched in 2021, and its purpose was to accelerate climate action in tourism with everyone involved in travel businesses, destinations and supporting organisations. Anybody involved in travel are encouraged to sign up to the Glasgow Declaration to share their best practice and develop their own climate action plan using the 5 pathways. You measure, decarbonise, regenerate, collaborate and finance. And anybody who owns a travel organisation can sign up to the declaration. It's www.glasgowdeclaration.org if you wish to sign up to that. There's been a recent study, obviously from the point of view of the UN and all these pacts and agreements going on. A recent study was put together by the Travel Foundation in collaboration with numerous experts around universities, etc., called Envisioning Tourism in 2030 and Beyond, the Changing Shape of Tourism in a Decarbonising World. I'm not sure you can read some of those little numbers there, but it shows on how the breakdown of transportation is in terms of the CO2 emissions and the target of 2050 net zero greenhouse gas emissions. It was developed to make policyholders in the tourism industry understand that it is possible to develop a globing, thriving, decarbonising tourism industry by the end of this decade and through to 2050, when tourism and every other human activity must achieve net zero greenhouse gases. But it will need a radical change. If we continue the way we are, the global population and affordability, travel and tourism will grow, will double in size and therefore increase all of the emissions if we carry on as normal. So they've suggested a decarbonisation pathway. We should add smaller words for these things. And it actually encourages people to actually put in a risk assessment. It's like similar to a health and safety risk assessment, you do a climate change risk assessment, especially if you're a destination, if you've got eroding coastlines, things like that will affect your business going forward. So make sure that there's a risk, they're encouraging people to do this risk assessment. I think yesterday we were told that the UK is 36th in the sustainability target chart that Euromonitor runs. We were 36th. But some governments are taking action to introduce travel restrictions. For example, in France in 2022, they banned all short-haul flights if there was a coach or rail alternative of less than 2.5 hours. In the Netherlands, they put a reduced cap on their airport capacity for environmental reasons. And from 2023, the number of flights from Amsterdam Schiphol Airport will be fixed at 440,000, a 12% cut from pre-pandemic levels. Deutsche Bahn, the German rail company, encouraged travellers to move to trains with ticket subsidies. They sold 52 million tickets, which saved 1.8 million tonnes of CO2 emissions by people moving to trains. Again, Spain offers free travel for anything under 300 kilometres. There's support for various sustainable aviation fuels, and Norway are pioneering zero electric ferries, and from 2026 will only allow zero-emission ships and boats into their fields. So things are happening, and I also believe that Austria do a similar operation with trains and coaches as well. So it does make some very bold statements, and people have got to bite the bullet, if you like, and make changes. So if we actually move forward the whole way, I think I had this conversation with a gentleman at the back there yesterday about the way that travel will change in the future. There'll be less long haul travel. There'll be a move to more coach travel, more rail travel. In fact, coach travel and rail travel will increase by 76%. Cars, it says car travel will increase by 155%, but that will be on electrical renewable cars once the infrastructure is in place. So things are happening, but this is how it would look in the future and how it compares to 2019. A large number of organisations have already implemented their own sustainability programmes, and of course group travel is particularly affected because of the use of coach travel. The Confederation of Passenger Transport has been instrumental in putting together, with the input of operators and the CTA, the Zero Emissions Coach Task Force. In the last few years, to try and find a solution for putting coaches on the road and making sure that there is an infrastructure to support the change in the coach operation. They've also produced a route map to Destination Zero, which here actually shows that there are things that we can't do. There's some solutions. There's some potential solutions, shall I say, not existing solutions. I mean, the infrastructure for charging points isn't there for coaches, but then again, it's not there for cars either. As my niece quite rightly told me, driving from Glasgow to Bristol in an electric car, it took her quite some time to get down to Bristol, having to recharge her car. So there's still an awful lot of work to do on that. The challenge is enormous, with a large amount of ancillary problems associated with the introduction of zero-emission coaches. It's already recognised that coach travel is as green as it gets. Coach tourism is the greenest way to travel, along with trains. The CPT highlights the fact that coaches are amongst the cleanest, greenest vehicles on our roads, with average CO2 emissions per passenger per journey being 5 or 6 times lower than any car travel. A change in travel habits can have a huge impact on reducing emissions. The number of coaches that run on electric are, in comparison to diesel, fairly small. I don't know if anybody's seen the electric coach that's parked over there, but produced by Pelican. Very interesting. And of course, we've got Ember running in Edinburgh between cities, and we've got Westway in London moving into London, with the widespread use of electric buses in towns. The feasibility at the moment of operating large numbers of holiday traffic on coaches is still being worked on. I was chatting to the gentleman at Pelican yesterday, and they have now introduced a briefcase-sized charging unit for coaches. So you can actually charge it from a phase 3 electric supply in the yard, as opposed to going and trying to find one at the petrol station or wherever. And they're looking at I think it's at the bus show in September, October. They will be displaying their new coach with 3 axles that will increase the payload to accommodate batteries and passenger luggage. But enough from me on this. I'm not an expert on the coach industry. What I'd like to do now is pass over to John Johnson from Johnson Coaches, who will tell us a little bit about the challenges and the successes that his company has faced. Thank you, John.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Yes, indeed, it's a massive problem, climate change for all of us. And it's sad that this seminar here isn't full of people, because all of us, everybody in this world, needs to take it more seriously. And I think that's one of the cause of the problem, sadly. However, yes, we're talking about coaches, we're talking about what our industry does and what it can be doing, and what at Johnson's what we're doing. To start with, let's just remember that the government are intending to phase out all diesel transport by 2040. That's their aim, that's their target. 2040, still a long way away. So that's a long journey to get there. You'll appreciate that buses already are a long way down that road, because you'll appreciate a bus goes out and does its work all day, and it comes back and it be recharged overnight, and out it goes again the next day. It doesn't need to carry luggage, so it's a much easier problem to solve. And so already and also the bus industry is made up mostly of big, large companies who own thousands of buses, which is very different to the coach industry. The average size coach fleet in this country is still only about 15 vehicles per operator. So you've got to remember to start with, you're dealing with a much more fragmented and family-based industry with coaching. It's still almost a cottage industry. A large coach operator probably runs 75 coaches. A large bus operator runs about 2,000 to 3,000 buses. So you'll understand that the problems that we have of bringing the infrastructure in place in our yards all over the country are much more challenging. However, there's lots that we can do without a shadow of a doubt. So remember that figure, 2040. I think the first thing I need to tell you is that all of us coach operators, anybody in the industry, should be telling our customers, you've mentioned it already, Wendy, how clean a Euro 6 diesel engine is. It's cleaner than a new Euro 6 coach produces less NOx, N-O-X, than an ordinary car, than a diesel car. They are amazingly clean and efficient pieces of kit. But sadly, that's lost on the general public. Everybody out there now thinks anything diesel, especially diesel, also petrol, anything fossil driven is dirty and needs to be got rid of as soon as possible. Well, yes, it does, without a shadow of a doubt. But as I said, it's going to take a lot longer than one thinks. To start with the infrastructure. We talked about the electric bus coach over here. National Express did some studies with electric coaches recently, and the batteries took up 2/3. The electric... Yes, please, will you stop putting me off my speech over there, will you? Move on. Electric coach takes 2/3 of the luggage capacity is taken up by the batteries. So for touring coaches, it's quite probable that we'll have to bypass electric coaches and move on to hydrogen. Now, hydrogen's great, very efficient, can be very clean if it's produced greenly, if it's manufactured in a green way, which is not always the case and not very straightforward. But if we can get to nitrogen, that would cover and solve the weight and capacity issues that we need for coaches. However, of course, hydrogen is such that we wouldn't be able to have a little tank in our yard like we have diesel tanks. It's a problematic means of energy, and it would require large locations that we'd all have to go to fill up with our hydrogen. So it's pretty involved. But coming back to just for a minute, just about our coaches as they are now. So people think out there, yeah, why aren't you converting to electric? Why aren't, cars are electric now, why can't you have electric coaches? As I say, it's not as easy as that. So one of the things we need to be doing in this next 5-10 years, to be honest with you, and you might think it's a cop-out, but is to tell our customers how green our coaches are. And I'm trying to encourage all the coach operators I know, through the Guild of British Coach Operators, through CPT, UK COA, which are trade associations for our industry, to tell their members to put in their brochures, to put on their websites information about A, how clean our diesel engines are, and B, the simple mathematics of, for example, 30, 40, 50 people travelling in a coach which has one engine compared to 20, 30 or 40 cars. The difference is massive. So we really need to encourage more people to travel by coach, and I would say that, but also to understand that every time they get in a car and decide, oh, we're all going on a trip to one of these lovely places featured here today, but we don't want to go by coach, we've all got to go at the same time and board in the same place. We'll all go by car, and then that's 20, 30, 40 people turning up at a hotel, all of them travel by car. That's the sort of thing that's got to change first. So I'm urging all coach operators, we do it in our brochures now, have half a page at least in every brochure we do, that talks about the green contribution that coaches are already making and will continue to make until a satisfactory solution can be found in the longer term future, i.e. by 2040. It's massive. So we should be celebrating what a coach can do at the moment and not just saying, well, we'll go to electric or nitrogen when we can. We should be telling people on our websites and everything else, and I'd urge anyone in transport to do that. So yeah, we've got a lot to do. We can do a lot more, of course, without a shadow of a doubt. We've got to look at our whole companies, and this includes everybody here in this room, not just coach operators. We've got to look at everything we do to say, what can we do to reduce our carbon footprint? We've got a simple example here at Johnson's at the moment. I'm looking at this gentleman's single-use plastic bottle in front of him, water bottles. You know, we supply water on our coaches for customers, whether it be private hire or on holidays and excursions, as a matter of convenience. Because it's good for us to drink water, much better than fizzy drinks, Red Bull and all that. Don't get me started on that sort of thing. We should be drinking more water, but we shouldn't be using single-use plastics. Somehow we should be, replacing those single-use plastic bottles with something more environmentally friendly. Second, we should be telling our customers, here's a free drinks bottle that you can fill up at any time, and rest assured the water from that hotel or from that boat trip or from that train ride is perfectly clean water that you can turn on the tap and fill up your water bottle and reuse it. We've sadly got into this stage just on the simple process of water alone, is that we only think water is clean if it's come out of a plastic bottle that we buy in the supermarket. So don't, you know, I could rabbit on for ages here about that sort of thing, but rest assured the industry is working on it. As Wendy mentioned, the CPT have got this zero emission task force that are working closely with the government about trying to put the infrastructure in place. Because I could go out tomorrow and buy an electric coach. First problem is it's going to cost me about almost double. Certainly a new touring coach now, I've just had one delivered yesterday, £260,000. If I went electric, that would be £360,000 for the same vehicle that can travel less miles, that has less luggage capacity, etc. So I need help. This coach industry needs help. Coach operators, remember it's a small family-based type industry. We need help from government to deliver that sort of product, to subsidise the extra cost. Secondly, government need to put their hand in the pocket and provide the infrastructure. We can't go touring in Scotland unless we're sure we can recharge coaches at hotels, at attractions and anywhere else. Otherwise, our passengers are sitting there having a long lunch break of 4 or 5 hours waiting our coach to recharge somewhere. So there's a lot to do, without a shadow of a doubt. But I'll just leave you with the fact that we all need to be working hard. We need to do more. And that's from governments worldwide, national government, local authorities, attractions, hotels, coach operators. We need to be all doing more, and I'm hoping that if this show goes ahead next year after, this seminar would be full of people interested in trying to save our world, because the figures you saw earlier are absolutely frightening. Happy to take questions, I think, at the end, but I'm not sure. Thank you very much. I'll come and sit down. Thank you.
Sorry, it's a long way to this bit from over there. Just here really to thank you very much for that, John. Very, very passionate. I'd like to now introduce Beverly Williams-Smith from Q Green Hotel Group, who's going to talk about the challenges that they've faced in introducing sustainability in their hotels. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. A little bit about Q Green Hotels. We have 45 plus hotels in the UK. We're predominantly Holiday Inn properties, thus IHG branded. As being part of the IHG community, who have their own green engaged system, we of course adhere to that in our pledge to reduce our carbon emissions to zero by 2040, which is 10 years lower than the Paris Agreement. We had our emissions measured on our 2019 stats by Plant Mark, and we are waiting now for the results of those our 22 data to get the results, where we hope that our aim to reduce our emissions from 2019 to 2022 by 10%. We have worked hard to change the way we work in all our hotels. We have a carbon emissions workforce. We have EV charging stations in our hotels. We have reduced our waste and water and recycling products. We have recycling bins in all our rooms now for separate waste products. We have the towels and housekeeping, so rewards for clients that decline housekeeping if their stay is longer than 2 days. We have reduced all the water out of the showers and taps, so they flow with less water coming through them to save on water. We partner with Green to Go to reduce our food waste. We've also, in the bathrooms, removed all plastics, and we now use refillable bottles for shampoos and hand products, soaps. We have also partnered with, better put my glasses on, I think I'll do better. So we have also, offer more plant-based food options on our menus, and we also have reduced our deliveries to our hotels, and we do not contract with any suppliers that do not have a carbon emission plan in place. We have also, not only do we work tirelessly within our hotels to reduce paper, so our receipts, invoicing are now electronic wherever possible, but also with our the whole operation. Last year we planted 1,200 trees. That was one tree for every employee in Kew Green. So we also work within our community and our global community, and so we are partnered now with the Trestle Trust to help fight with the food bank situation. So it's not just emissions, it's about the whole local community and global community. With IHG, of course, they have their Green Engage system, but of course we also have partners with Marriott who have Serve 360, and we have Hilton with their Travel with Purpose emissions process in place. So with no further ado, and after all that, sorry about that, I will hand back over to Wendy.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Beverly. And I will say Beverly did step in at the last minute due to a panelist dropping out. So thank you very much for doing that for me. Okay, so we've heard about, particularly from John, about the enthusiasm on coaches. And what we have to remember as GTOs, who are in the audience, hopefully, you're in an ideal position to actually influence and do exactly what John was saying. promote the green. As you can see, coach is the greenest way of travel. To promote the fact that people can go on holiday on a coach and save the planet, basically, is one of the messages that you need to do. We need to spread the word to make the people's choices for sustainable travel. We know it's the greenest form of transport, and we should be proud that we are influencing climate change in this way. But as you know, we can do more, and maybe we should. We should ask hoteliers like Beverly, what are your sustainability credentials before you put your trips together? So thank you very much for that, and just remember, the future depends on what you do today. There's no more truth in that than there is today. So thank you, Mahatma Gandhi, and he said that a long time ago. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy, John, and Beverly.